parish orphans and retrogrades. Welcome to the Ask Me Anything episode of Rules for Retrogrades. Before we get into the sundry questions that you have from me, some of these will probably be personal. Some of them are theology, some are philosophy, more and less practical. I want to make sure on that practical note, because we're having technical difficulties, that you can hear me. Even if you see the camera freezing, it's unbelievable what technology does sometimes. Can you hear me clearly? Can people in the chat verify that you can hear these words? Are we getting anything, Steffi?
Yeah, I will.
Anybody out there, let us know. Amen.
Audio's okay. Yeah.
Audio's okay. Good. Okay. Amen. So we begin every show with the Exsurge Domine, and we usually kind of save the Amen for the closing. Today is a special show. I don't do Ask Me Anything shows very often at all. I think I've done a total of one in almost 6 years of having the show. I don't know. I never think to do them. But here's the thing. They're valuable because, for one thing, it helps a YouTube influencer, a podcaster, to demonstrate his chops, so to speak. And it's not a pride thing, but just, it's nice to know that someone you're watching has the info, or at least the beginnings to a strong answer, in the back pocket. I think that's important, rather than just this person is researching 10 hours a week for each show and then doing 3 shows a week, which represents hard work. I think it's important to demonstrating expertise. Secondly, it is the soul of more interactivity with the audience. Thirdly, it shows that, we narrowly tailor to your guys' needs. And fourthly, it's just kind of fun. And other shows do it more often. I don't know. Usually this channel has not gone by the watchword. If other channels are doing it, I guess that would be a fifth reason. Then let's do it. We kind of blaze our own trail. But I think it would be really fun. I've gotten a bunch of submitted questions on Twitter, on Locals, and on email, the Timothy J. Gordon at timothyjgordon.com email. And so we're going to tend to those first. You guys can tender questions here after we get rolling. And we're going to do that just now. I would make this first caveat. Rules for Retrogrades, as loyal viewers of the show know, is a mid-sized channel which tackles and has tackled third rail topics, too hot to touch topics that bigger channels won't touch. We've started trends among bigger channels that no one else has. We've made predictions that came accurate, proved themselves that no one else has. And most of all, we've just taken stands that nobody else has. As such, I was kicked off of Patreon over 2 years ago. We have devoted viewers, and I really do hate to do this. I hate bugging you. But since we moved to Locals off Patreon, we failed to recap our patronage from Patreon. So just as a little reminder here today, as part of an end-of-the-year fundraiser, here's what we're aiming to do with the loyal, mid-sized audience of this, very, very devoted fanship. Gain 25 special new Locals supporters, who interact with the show in a more intimate way. I'm going to let you guys sort of set what you want your interactions to be, but these special local supporters will be $100 supporters or more. We're going to get to it, hopefully at least 25. And once you guys register for this, go register for Locals for $100 or more monthly. Or if you're 5 or 10 monthly and you switch it to that, then email me at timothyjgordon.com and name your request by email after signing up on Locals for 100 or more. And what we'll do is we're going to give you a special number that you can call in the show with, and you can just name, hey, let me try the coaching for free, 1 or 2 sessions. Let me let me call this number and text you. Let me do whatever. Because the locals interface as an alternative to Patreon hasn't been that good. It's not that interactive. Patreon was much easier to interact with you guys. As my local supporters know, you get the weekly Lord of the Rings reading group. You get behind the scenes, behind my house video updates once a week on the weekend. You get some other perks, but for this special class, because we really do have to, we have to tend to this, and I hate it. I can't stand salesmanship. But at the end of the year, we do have to raise some funds. We're even having difficulty with the computer here today. It took us 35 extra minutes just to get going. So what we're going to do is try to get to 25 numbered new special local supporters who are willing to help the show to the tune of $100 a month or more. Locals is difficult to interact with. It's difficult to even tell really who you're dealing with. It's just not as good as Patreon. Remember when, I don't know, Twitter, before it was bought by Elon, and it was kicking people off left and right 4 years ago. There's going to be Gab, there's going to be Parler. All of those alternative modalities failed. I don't know why conservatives never do the alternative modalities as well as the liberals who run them. But Patreon was really well run. They're just censorship, and I got kicked off for saying the full Catholic truth. So please, from now till the end of the year, but really especially today, we'd like to do one big push for 25 new local supporters of $100 monthly or more. We appreciate the one-time deals. That's great. We really appreciate the small levels, but this is what we're doing for the end of the year push. Also, Donor Box is a donation. You can give monthly, but I can't offer you anything for that. That's strictly donative. People who give monthly or one time on Donor Box, they do so because they know the family situation. They know about the Abby story. We can't offer anything for that, or else it's not a donation. So bear in mind, if you're one of the very loyal, mid-sized audience members that watches every show, that you come here for a unique reason. And that unique reason is alternately, oppositely situated with regard to being super, super profitable. So just bear that in mind and realize these channels do need funding, and this is the way to do it. So if you like the absolutely unique spin on Catholic commentary you get here, please consider being one of these 25 new local supporters. Go do it right now. Go to locals and click $100 or more, and then email me at timothyjgordon.com and say, hey, it's done. Here's how I'd like to interact. We're going to get that new phone number up and running. But let's start with questions. Ask me anything, after all. And look at the first question here. Listen to this. Monthly supporter here. What are your current views on Vatican II? Have they changed or evolved at all? For starters, right out of the box. No, my views on Vatican II, while they've evolved just a little bit, haven't evolved much. I think the evil intent for the council has become more and more clear throughout the Francis pontificate, and he's clarified this really is this is the aegis that he claims under which he does all this revolutionary stuff. But I do still say it's textually viable, that particularly the constitutions of the council they stand up, but it's become more clear to me that any council where you destroy Gregorian chant, you're literally ripping altars out of churches, and you write a new mass that by pretty much all accounts is worse. Oh, wow.
Sorry, the computer's acting up today. Sorry, I don't know what's going on.
By all accounts, that was our alarm for funky council alarm.
We are having massive tech issues here. The fact that I am getting this on today, I have no idea what's going on. I don't know what that is. Sorry. So bear with us. Bear with us, please. Sorry.
Again, local 25 new local supporters.
We need a new computer.
We probably need the new computer. We're not just being dramatic. It was funny that this happened, stalled the show by 40 minutes today, just because of tech issues. I would just say all of these things that have arisen out of the council, they're not normal. It's not like all of the previous 19 or 20 councils had similar bugaboos that just took 50 or 100 years to work out. That's not the case. There was an evil intent behind the council, but the texts still stand without heresy. Now, there's some really close heresies that I hadn't noticed before, like Nostra Aetate. I just knew less about that issue. And that's a really strong showing of what we'd call an about face, but still technically no heresies. I would say they've evolved. I've grown even more convinced that, hey, this council really had an evil intent. Same person is wondering how a Catholic can respond to the Enlightenment. Not an expert, but interested. I think I know enough that the Enlightenment was bad news. Was the Enlightenment the birth of skepticism, rejection of supernatural realities and truth? Yeah. The Enlightenment philosophies, rationalism and empiricism, are not particularly compelling. So you don't really have to worry about them all that much. They've been previously rebutted by Thomism. So if you just study Thomism, Aristo-Thomism, it's prevailed. That's really the truth. I'm not just saying that. Although I probably would not be interested in directly reading Enlightenment authors, it's very boring. I do think that to a certain extent, it's good to be aware of some. I mean, maybe I can do a show for you on the Enlightenment simpliciter, but here's the main idea. You have two competing main Enlightenment philosophies, and there's rationalism, basically the basis of all knowledge is reason, and empiricism, the basis of all knowledge is not reason, but just what can be empirically tested and verified. They're opposite. Each rebuts the other's epistemic premise, and yet, their common goal. Descartes being the leader of the rationalists and Francis Bacon being the leader of the Enlightenment empiricists, was to get rid of two of the four Aristotelian causations, final causation and formal causation, and doing so led everyone to being materialist, reductionist, atheists. So, and also their main works were called like the Novum Organum and things like that. They needed to undo Aristotle and Thomas. So if you go back to Aristotle and Thomas, you will see very clearly that the answers are readily furnished there. Okay, let's go to the next question. Ask me anything. Enoch, my friend Enoch, said, would you want Manu Ginobili or Jay Crawford as your sixth man if you ran a team? And I said to him on Twitter, my heart says Jamal Crawford, but my head says Manu. My heart says Jamal's one of the finest ball handlers of all time and point getters. Manu, though, got, 5 chips? 4 or 5 chips. So you got to say that, money talks and BS walks. I love Jamal Crawford, and he'll actually interact with us some on Twitter. So I'll write him stuff. Half the time he'll write back. Where's my weekly sea mask? We are off this week. Nick was traveling, so we didn't roll with it. It was supposed to be just sort of a legacy upload. Maybe we'll do a legacy upload. A train leaves New York at 8 a.m. heading west, traveling at 55 miles an hour, a second train.
Oh boy.
But they didn't ask the question. I would have literally done the algebra problem. Not that it's hard. Yeah, live on air, but Mr. Chichowski didn't finish it. Karen said, I get your issue with he needs to be worthy to submit to, meaning I reject contingent wifely submission. But how does that look when dating? This is an important question. Mostly, how does a woman determine that he will take on the role of a leader and she end relationship if he is lacking? Well, so in dating, there's a kind of virtual potency to the prospective male leader when you're dating. So you're kind of trying out how will it be if you become my boss. I mean, I know people lie about me and Steph on the internet all the time, the Catholic feminists more than anyone. So it's a woman getting to pick her boss. If she wants things really lenient, That doesn't mean he'll be the best guy, but pick a lenient boss. There are really good Catholic guys out there that tend toward leniency. Actually, I'm sort of one of them. If she knows she needs to have, she wants to be held to a tight routine, and then pick a strict boss. But so that's basically what it is for women. You're picking your boss. Not only are you picking someone that's really loving, because the main command of husband to wife is to love, but your main practical logistical concern is pick someone that is the kind of boss you want to have. Once you've picked, now we have this ex post, ex ante, before, after juxtaposition of outcomes. Once you've picked, there's absolutely crystal clarity that post marriage, you must submit to everything he says. So it's too late then. But absolutely be really vigilant, ladies, when you're dating men. If he's too strict and you think that's weird, because I kind of think strictness. Now, I'm going to be honest. People think I'm strict. They've taken and run with a falsehood they heard, like, joked about by Trent Horn and his wife. Like, I'm not by my nature a strict guy. I'm by my nature a lenient, kind of laid back guy.
Yep.
So they'll say this one thing they heard, like, Steph's not allowed to go out. Steph doesn't like to drive and asks me to chauffeur out of safety everywhere. And that happens to coincide with, like, the Roman Catechism, but I'm not a strict guy by nature. I try to follow the teachings closely, but if you think strictos are kind of weirdos, which I kind of do, if I'm dealing with, like, a trad couple and the guy's really strict, it's even though I'm known as, like, the patriarchy man, it feels kind of weird. If you agree with that, ladies, then don't continue to date a strict guy. Unless he's strict and he's, like, the best guy in the world, okay? But once you pick, there's no saying he's not being worthy today of submitting to. That's just rebutted everywhere in the Bible. Karen also asked, what's your perspective on arguments in marriage given that the wife should submit? How should apologizing work? What should wife do if husband says or does something that hurts her feelings? We actually do this marriage coaching. Go to timothyjgordon.com. We do 2-on-2 marriage coaching, and we just dealt with this with one of our really lovely couples. So we have something called the one bite of the apple rule, because a wife, Pius XII says, well, she has to submit to her husband in all things. She's not like one of the kids. She has the dignity of a full adult ego and intellect. So she's just not the boss. So she is his first and should be closest advisor, really only advisor. So if she says, hey, I think you're leaning into going right, I think you should lean into going left, he should hear her out fully and enthusiastically and be like, huh. Now, if he chooses, okay, I heard you out, thanks for that, and, like, I'm still going to go right on this turn here, then she's got to just, okay, that's it. That's the one bite of the apple rule. But let's say he is being grouchy or short as he goes through all this, short-tempered. That's a feelings matter. And what she should do is, hey, kind of use a marker, hold a marker and be like, that was really grouchy. That hurt my feelings. And just bring it up as soon as he seems ungrouchy again, whether that's 5 minutes or a half hour. Because feelings do matter. See, that's the thing. This is not like the Jocko Willink. That's not what we've ever said. We get characterized that way. If something horrible happens, good, just take it. Feelings do matter, particularly because husband and wife are best friends. It's a friendship between unequals. So absolutely raise that, give him the opportunity, and without being a nag, just say, when you did this, it did hurt my feelings. I just want to let you know. It felt like less than you are. And I just want to leave you with that. You don't have to say anything right now. Just would you please consider that? 45 minutes ago when you said this, you're normally so sweet and that hurt my feelings. That always does it with a good guy. Just leave it at his doorstep and be like, I'm going to go, bake these brownies, but I just wanted to let you know. Because apologies are so important to life. Reconciliation can't happen without apologies. And the leader needs to be leading people in apologies. So see, none of this is that Catholic feminism that you're used to us dispelling. Very, very important. Are there any updates on the discussion with Nick? I think they mean NJF. No, I think he's trying to lay low right now after having the most tweeted tweet ever or whatever.
In the history of the universe.
In the history of the universe. Here's another one. So someone did this question, why are you such a douchebag? The response is, please become a monthly supporter at $100 a month on Locals, and I will answer that inquiry. Fully. I mean, there's got to be a higher standard for asking it that way, but I will answer that. And he or she responded, you're just so masculine and based. You really know how to put women in their place.
Yep.
Not too many men like you around. You're my hero. You're just so tough. I mean, your wife must really love you to ask your permission to leave the house.
Yep.
It's just, and I said, thank you. Thank you. That's nice of you to say all this. That's more than you had to say.
You didn't say that. That's so nice.
It is. Where were those other questions, Stevie?
On text. I sent the text.
Okay, I'm running out of phone bat now too. Yeah.
Okay, I can try to read them to you on my laptop if people can hear me okay.
Okay, yeah, let's do that.
Again, sorry for the lagging video. Our computer is 12 years old. So let me see here. Okay. Let's see. Tim, wondering why you left a career in law. After graduating from law school, I know you went to law firm and hated it. You've mentioned the bar exam before, but I was wondering if you could speak more on this topic.
Sure. Yeah. So when I came back from Italy with Abby having hydrocephalus, basically, I've never spoken about this before. This is quite personal, but I'd always wanted a PhD in philosophy. I'd done most of the coursework for one. I had a master's in philosophy from Loyola Marymount. Went out to the Greg, where they hatch all this Jesuit tomfoolery. This is before I really knew that much. Where they did the Shadow Council at Vatican II was at the Pontifical Gregorian University. There are 7 pontifical universities in Rome. I was at the Greg, right there near Trevi Fountain. It was beautiful. It was a great time. Didn't really know quite how evil the Jesbos were at that time, but man, there are some great professors there. And I went there for an American professor, leading Thomist in the world, who is a Jesuit. So I did 1 year. I got the PhL degree, which is basically the coursework for doctorate. I only had to have been out there for like 1 class per semester for another year. But when Abby was born with such a scary health condition, we just fled. I kind of wish I hadn't done that in retrospect. I just had to be there to take like 1 pro seminar. They don't make you do as much coursework for doctorates over in Europe. Came back, didn't really know what to do, just knew I'd studied like Averroes, like be a master of law, be a master of philosophy. This is like a medieval master. So I went to the most philosophically cogent law school I could. And the same, they had a sort of center for philosophy and law, and they had a center for originalism, which was USD law. And took high grade, Cali Award in a couple of classes. They have a special law school award for if you get high grade. I took Cali Award in 2 classes. Did really well. Abby was in and out of Rady Children's the entire time. And it was, again, tough. Other students would head to the library to study for 6 hours after class. And I'd just go over to Rady Children's some of those semesters because she was having her shunt acting up. And I'd catch an hour of study, was consistently studying that much less. I was never super into the law, aside from the classes where I was like, I can't afford to not take high grade in this class. So I was just trying to stick in the middle part of the curve, was basically didn't take a lot of the bar classes, bar prep classes, took like every constitution class I could, because I kind of just wanted to be a master, and I was training to be a landman, a petroleum landman. The whole time, was never going to be a lawyer basically after the first semester of law school. Because they give you a legal writing seminar first year, and they're like, this is the class that's the most like what you're going to be doing. If you like your crim law class or your torts class, it's not this academic. It's more just writing briefs and memos, which I hated. So I was like, I'll just go be a petroleum landman. Did 2 different internships for a petroleum landman. I was never planning to take the bar, so I didn't take any of the bar classes. And that's what I was going to do. You might or might not know what a petroleum landman is, but they like JDs now. So never had to take the bar. When I finished law school, the internship I thought I was going to get didn't pan out. And so just because I needed a job, I took the first actual law job that was offered. There's one close to my house. Took that. It was very high stress. Enjoyed it as much as I thought I would, which was not at all. And so basically took the bar in pursuant of that. They're just like, hey, take the bar. It takes in California like 4 months back to get it. I didn't really study much for it. I just took it to tell them I took it, and I was just looking for jobs for the next year. So that's the bar. You study basically 12 hours a day times 9 weeks. I was not doing that. I took it, I tried okay, but I was just looking around that entire year for another job. And I ended up finding a job that paid almost twice what it had paid me before I had the law degree. My old Catholic high school teaching job was a really great job for a while. So I found that job in that year, but I just took it to basically buy time. That's a true story. That's the truest I've ever been on it. So never really prepped for the bar exam, which is pretty much just an information dump. Okay, so that's the honest to goodness answer.
What are your current views on Vatican II? Have they changed or evolved at all?
Okay, I answered that one.
You did? Okay.
Yeah.
Thoughts on Trump's appointments?
I mean, the important ones seem bad so far and seem globalist and Zionist.
And female?
And female. And the less important ones like, Vivek or, he's talking about Ron Paul, I would like those. But the important ones seem bad. And I'm not up to date on the if he did some Friday, Saturday, or, probably not Sunday or this morning, I'm not up to date on those. But so far, all the most important ones seem like bad news to me. And like he's already kind of making some of the same mistakes he made last time.
A monthly supporter wrote that a parish priest won't sacramentally marry his wife and him because they challenged the marriage process. Specifically, they scored low on the focus test, and I guess the priest is a Christian feminist. He's anti-feminist in his point of view, and he feels like he's discriminating against him. So, I'm just reading through.
The tough thing with positions of authority, of subjective positions of authority, like a parish priest who can deny you getting married, or like a college professor who's probably a liberal most of the time, who can deny you a good grade on a paper in like a humanities class. I know you guys know I've been fired from jobs. I've been kicked off of this and that platform. So I'm always like an open and honest, notorious truth teller guy. But even only being kicked off of 3 or 4 jobs or platforms, even to keep my number low, that does mean I am using, where possible, where I'm not having to negotiate on principles, just sort of saying things truly, but maybe saying them down a little bit. There's nothing wrong with that. When your parish priest can deny you sacramental union with the woman that you're calling wife, then be prudent, is what I say. Now, you never compromise on principle. Anything besides principle, fully compromisable. It's a big, important distinction. And not everything is a principle. So I'm one of these guys, I will not budge an inch if something's a principle. When I got kicked off of locals, when I got kicked off of Patreon, they're like, all you have to do is take down this, this, and this, and you can have your money. And I was like, no. Next. And yeah, and like I said today, by the way, we are still suffering from that. We didn't recoup nearly all of those Patreon supporters. So please, we're trying to get to 25 new, between now and the end of the year, new local supporters of 100 a month or more. So it's definitely worth going soft where you can without compromising a principle. That's what I would say. In regard to getting sacramentally married, if he denies it to you, then you have to live Josephite until then. So do remember that. That's a principle.
Go somewhere else too.
Also, just go somewhere else. You don't need, just go to another priest. You can pretty much, what we call in the law, forum shop. So do that, and maybe this time, of course, most priests are feminists. Most priests are sometimes even worse than that, I won't even say. you don't borrow trouble. Just go there, go through the focus. We have dear friends who just did this.
It's stupid. It's
stupid.
Horrible. Focus is an awful, awful train wreck garbage pail of a marriage program.
Right. It's a garbage pail of a marriage program, but go along to get along, because the problem is they might, if you're telling people that, well, they're their viewpoint discriminating against us. Yeah, I mean, they probably are. I bet 90% they are. But what if, and I don't know you, I'm saying 90% I believe you, 95. But same thing with, what if it's a conservative student in the Philosophy 101 class that literally just wrote a crappy paper, and his professor's a liberal but fair-minded and just gave him a bad grade because he wrote a crappy paper. Therefore, kind of just try to keep politics out of it so that you'll know whether or not your grade is fair. See what I'm saying? Okay, next question.
Okay.
You do have to live Josephite though until you get that worked out. Just go get the next priest at the next parish.
Tim, can you do a show or segment that gives a thorough treatment on the traditional Catholic teaching on Thomistic approach to immigration?
Yeah.
There's so much propaganda that weaponizes the Beatitudes. It would be good to see what a sound Orthodox teaching is on the subject.
Yeah, Thomas, where he talks about patriotism, makes clear that observing the laws of a country is covered under the commandment to honor patriotism, to honor your mother and your father, rather. So the borders of a country, and it's absolutely exampled all throughout the Old Testament. The borders of a country are sovereign. Nations are sovereign. To traverse the borders of a country, now it doesn't. If people come here, what would violate the Bible, the teachings of the New Testament and Old Testament, would be if we're deporting them without giving them food or water while we're holding them before they can be deported. You see, that would violate the Bible. If you hear of anyone doing this, this is not what America does, then this would violate the Bible. But Thomas is very clear that honoring the laws of a nation, particularly a nation you have emigrated to, is like the first mark for whether you're a good fit there. And if you're not a good fit because you're unwilling to follow the laws, then the country does not have the duty to confer citizenship upon you. Thomas thinks the absolute opposite. And further, if your first act as a new member of the country, I won't even say citizen, is to violate a law, to violate the sovereignty of the borders, then you absolutely aren't a good fit for that country. So there's just zero ambiguity here. There's no ambiguity that, okay, so if you're going to be deported, you have to be given food and water and treated in a humane way. But there is no affirmative duty to eradicate all borders. By the way, did you know that America is the only first world nation in the whole world stupid enough, we are stupid enough to converse something approaching birthright citizenship? If you're born here, anchor baby here, you get automatic citizenship. Did you know no other first world nation in the world does this?
Abby didn't get it.
What?
Abby did. When Abby was born in Italy,
yeah,
we thought she'd become, because we're dumb, we thought
she would get the same birthright.
She would be an Italian citizen, and they laughed at us. They were like, oh no, both parents have to be Italian.
Right. Yeah. They're like, what, are we stupid? We're not American. I think Canada has an analog for this, but they're the only other first world country that even comes close to conferring birthright citizenship. It's completely stupid. Citizens of a country mean that they engage in the body politic in a fundamentally participatory way, whereas there's resident aliens and all kinds of green card holders. They participate in a lower way in the body politic. And by the way, this question is intimately linked to the subsidiarity question. The subsidiarity question being, the Catholic teaching is that political community is a natural community, meaning it's not synthetic. This is an Enlightenment idea, meaning that the country has to be small geographically, or else it can't. The only way you can have a continent-sized country like we have is to have something called virtual representation. Virtual representation means there's no way you could know like 1/3 of a billion people. or that you could know that those third of a billion people share a res publica with you, share ideas about what the good is. And therefore, so having a big country violates the church teaching on natural community, political community. Thomas and Aristotle say should be natural community. This is relevant to borders because when someone comes over, it should be someone that's like us, not someone that's dissimilar from us. This is all the Republican theorists from Aristotle to Montesquieu. Many of them were Catholic, and they all agree. So in several different facets, honoring borders are really important to Catholic teaching on honoring your mother and your father. And Thomas makes this really clear in the Summa.
Okay, let's get to a super chat question. I'm going to sprinkle these in with the locals and subscribe star questions. First super chat question. Sorry, let me get up here. I'm Orthodox. What's your view on Orthodox Catholic marriage if we are both traditional in our respective churches? How do you reconcile differences?
I don't think Orthodox and Catholics should marry each other. I do like, generally speaking, Orthodox people. I do view you guys as much closer, like kissing cousins, than Protestants. I do think your liturgies are cool. I think your beards are cool. I'm not being sarcastic. And I do get the temptation. I do, and I've said this countless times, and I also like the masculinism involved by American Orthodoxy. I do get the temptation for short-sighted Catholics to be like, oh man, Orthodoxy is just Catholicism without the Pope. And I mean, that's basically what you guys are. Lots of Orthodox try to inflate the theological differences between you and us, and they're really, really minor. So I don't buy that there are major theological differences. The main theological difference is an ecclesiological difference on the Pope, and that does matter. So as much as I like Ortho Bros, sincerely, I would say probably most of the Ortho Bros would agree with me, don't do interreligious marriage. I mean, it would be cool if in a meaningful way we could just bridge the gap. But Francis plans to in 2025 is the rumor, but that will not be in a meaningful way. That'll be in a heretical way. Marry people. Catholics should only marry Catholics. Orthodox should only marry, scratch that. Orthodox should become Catholic.
Another marriage question.
I like you guys, though.
What should older single men 40 plus do? Too old for return, dating pool getting smaller, and not getting any older.
Not getting any younger, probably.
I guess that's what they were older, but
you are getting older, and so am I.
Getting older. Tell me what you've done.
Yeah.
I need to know.
You're Benjamin Button, or wait, there's Benjamin Button gets younger. How does it work?
Tell me. Benjamin Button.
Yeah.
Like aging in reverse or something? I don't remember. He was like he was born a man?
I don't know. Look, adjust your expectations. First off, a lot of the guys that we dealt with that were 40 or even 35 plus who are not married just were like threes who were like, I'll settle for a 9, but if not a 10, only a 9. And that's just debilitated them through their whole life. And also settle now for a kind of Abram and Sarai marriage where, you don't insist on getting a younger chick just so that you can be fertile. If you dream of children, I would say look to the pool of similar aged women. I mean, particularly if you're 40 and she's 40, you could get it wouldn't be a miracle child.
And let me tell you something too.
There are lots of 40-year-old women that are looking. 30-year-olds don't want 40-year-olds. It's not like that anymore. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was going to say that you'll find that a lot of these single late 30s, early 40s Catholic women are if you're in that age group and you're a man, those women are motivated to be good housekeepers, good wives.
Submissive.
Because, they're ready. I mean, that age group, if they've waited that long to get married, the ones that we're meeting in our matchmaking program, if they're 35, 40, whatever,
yes,
not married, they are motivated. They want to be good wives.
They do. So my main thing would be, do not make the fallacy of being like, well, look, I'm 42. I kind of missed my window. Now I'm willing to not date a Helen of Troy. I'll dip down to an 8. I mean, be willing to date a good woman But I do still need a young woman. Don't think that way. Think, hey, meet someone that you're a good match for, and usually peers mate better and pair bond better. People will ask, Tim, you're a trad. Isn't it really trad to date a much younger woman? No, the stats and just common experience both show that people pair bond better with someone of their sub-generation. You know, do you like Smashing Pumpkins? Yeah, I love to do that from the Steve Martin movie. You have to have the same cultural references, particularly in the social media age. It's really, really important. And so it's hard to pull off. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's hard to pull off a much older with much younger relationship. If you meet when you're 32 and she's 22, that's easier to pull off. 32 is more attractive to a 22-year-old than 42 is to a 30-year-old woman. So I would say be willing to date someone closer to your age.
What's the morality of selling organs? Remember, try not to be anti-Semitic. I'm not going to say the word. Also, could you compare English versus Latin? What's better and why?
I don't.
Selling organs? I don't know.
I don't fully. I mean, yeah, selling organs would be immoral because it's mutilation, and you're not covered under the principle of double effect, where you're saving a life. You're just trying to profit by it. So it's fundamentally immoral. I mean, as many people know, and will give me crap. I have many sympathies for Austrian economics, but this would be an area of libertarian immorality. You can't sell organs to turn a profit. And, just thumbing your nose at God. What was the thing? Compare English to Latin? I mean,
Yeah,
Latin is a much better language.
Yeah.
Latin is a much better language. English is good for poets because it's like the largest language. We have like 20,000 more synonyms than any other language, or no, it might be more than that. Between like 20,000 and 100,000 more synonyms than any other language. All the other languages lack synonyms. We have like 5 words for everything. So the poets like it. It's a language that is easy to be beautiful in. Shakespeare wrote in English for a reason. German, Friedrich Nietzsche said Heinrich Heine and himself were the most beautiful writers in German. He's kind of joking because it's such not a beautiful language. But Latin is so efficient, word order doesn't matter because if you don't know how to speak Latin or the ancient languages, word order doesn't matter because you essentially conjugate the nouns as well as the verbs. Now, when you conjugate a noun, it's called declining it. But so you can have words in any order, and that's really cool. And it's really efficient. So Latin is a much more efficient language, as are all the ancient languages. English is better for the poets and the prose makers.
Do you have any thoughts on the UFO, UAP stuff? Are there Catholic sources, persons whose opinion you value on this subject?
What's UAP?
Unidentified
Alien persons?
I have no idea.
I mean, I know what a UFO is.
Sadie, tell us what UAP is. Sorry, we don't pay much attention to that stuff because it's fake and gay.
I pay some. I mean, the UFOs, I was thinking were fake. Should I tell our story?
You can't.
Should I tell our story?
You can't say, should I tell our story, and then don't tell the story.
Steph and I saw a UFO once. We legitimately saw a UFO once. Okay. And it was we did a second honeymoon. It just feels like it'll be too long of a story. But generally, I will tender this. I'll tell the story. But before I tender this, I will tender this. This is the only shred of evidence I see for the fact that any of the UFO stuff is real at all, whether they're lying to us about what it is or not. I know a lot of Catholics online, my friend Michael Knowles, Tucker, they think UFOs are just demons. That seems semi-plausible, but I also just think it's more plausible that the government's just lying and that it could be Beer Bug Part 2, a la War of the Worlds. Everyone, BlackRock's buying up your farmland, get off your land, we're forcing you, we're declaring martial law because we need to go into these smart cities to be safe for aliens. That's what I thought it was at first.
That's what I still think.
That's what Steph still thinks, but here's the thing. In summer of 21, when a lot of this stuff was coming out, we were laughing. I remember we were driving the RV back from California. The last time we were there, we'd been here for a year. We had a wedding of a dear set of friends. And they said that fighter pilots in the fall of 2005 had noted off the coast of Baja California these crazy lights in the sky. This is literally what we were hearing on the radio when they were releasing all this, the government's admitting there are alien stuff, like 3 summers ago. Fighter pilots off the coast of Baja California were noting these lights in the sky that would travel slow, then here, then there. Like they'd go from going like 10 miles an hour to like 10,000 miles an hour, and the angular velocity like couldn't be tracked as anything else, but they were definitely real. You might have heard this story, right? This is kind of the first story that broke it all. No joke. We were laughing about it, but Steph and I on our honeymoon, we kind of broke our honeymoon into 2 things, because when we got married in summer of 2005, I did a mini one where I was like, let's just drive up and down the coast of California, because I only had like a week before I had to start teaching at public school, which was a horrible, horrible job. It was an inner city public school, and me and the seniors at the school would just insult each other.
I remember the first time I went to that school to like have lunch with you, I was walking onto campus up the stairs to your classroom, and a kid just randomly was throwing a wheelchair down the stairs.
It was a war zone.
It was odd.
It was a war zone. That's before I started teaching at the Catholic high school. But so I took that job just to have a job. Right after I had my master's degree, I was teaching philosophy at Compton Community College still, and would just commute one night a week to do that. But I also took this inner city high school job in my hometown. And that's very different from an inner city college job where the kids are really trying to get out of the ghetto. It was horrible. So I had just a week. So we did this driving up and down the coast, and Steph would never know where we're stopping. And we left right from our marriage ceremony. It was amazing. It was so cool. But we wanted to do a little more. So on fall break, I bought us a little cruise from like Long Beach to Catalina Island, California. You'll know this, down to Ensenada, Mexico. And this was kind of the second half of our honeymoon. And it was while we were out there playing like bocce. Late at night, we'd had a few drinks and we'd been gambling. It was us and another couple were out there just looking over the deck. You know, we were not far off of Baja, going down to Ensenada. And we saw those lights, and that was fall. Literally, this was September or October of 2005. We saw precisely what 16 years later we heard being released publicly and described on the radio power. And they're like, Baja, Mexico, off the coast, lights moving like this. And we'd never told really anybody about it. So that is the only thing that makes me think it's anything other than a government psyop. And that's pretty strong correlation. That's a true story. I told you you'd get more today, more honesty. You're asking me about
Mississippi. You have to have like your UFO alien story.
Yeah, I've never been probed. I told you about the true story with the law degree. There's one question I was expecting to come up that hasn't come up yet. Only true stories today, but I do urge you all, because we really are doing our end of the year thing. Please, if you watch this channel regularly and you have the resources, please go to Locals, because we never recovered fully from being kicked off of Patreon, and I just don't talk about it that much. Go to Locals and become a $100 or more local supporter, and then email me once you do it, and then we will have a special kind of interaction, because Locals interface isn't great, but it's what we have. We're trying to get to 25 of those between now and the end of the year. We just looks like we need a new computer today. And I just try to not be in your guys' ear. Or if you wanted to, you know, there's also donor box. If you big one-time donation, you don't get anything for that. That's just really you're donating because of, you know, the Abby story. You can even do monthly donations, but that's got to be a donation. That can't be, hey, I want anything, even interactions in return.
This is kind of funny. We've been talking about this. Just random question that we've been talking about. This is for me. It says, it's a horrible, horrible thought, but if you died tomorrow, what would you want Steph to respond moving forward in 5, 10, 20 years? I always say... How would I want her to respond? Yeah, like to move on in 5, 10, 20 years. I'll just answer that for Tim. I would never remarry. I'd just be single for the rest of my life.
Yeah, and vice versa. This one can get me emotional. It really can, just because we're best friends. The traditional teaching is obviously when you're assuming you make it to heaven, which is best case scenario, there are no sacraments in heaven. And so marriage is dissolved with the death of the first spouse. But this is one area I do hope that John Paul II, in his kind of, I don't want to say fruity, but I want to say more modernistic sort of light touch personalism. I hope it's true, because he says you and your spouse can have a special sort of recognition of one another in heaven among the blessed. And I really hope that's true. So I fully mean, not famous last words or whatever. I just, I truly would just, you raise my children, or Steph would raise our children. I wouldn't do a remarriage thing. I don't think Steph would either. Couldn't do it.
One Scott is in chat, and he's asking your top favorite movies, and also, are you gay?
Is that Scott? Scotty
B. Hi, Scott.
Now, so I owe Scott a list. We were supposed to be making a list of the greatest movies together, so he's just hassling me, being a little so-and-so. I mean, probably everyone kind of knows 310 to Yuma. I'm really, really big on Super 8 now because it's so Christian. It's so Gentile. Even if the director's not like an active Christian, it's just, I'm really into redemption stories. I really do like a movie called Out of the Furnace. I really have been into Peanut Butter Falcon lately, the Shia LaBeouf movie. People know as a young man I related to the Shia LaBeouf character in Disturbia. If you take the kind of four corners of my young to middle-aged personality, it's 2 Christian Bale movies and 2 Shia LaBeouf movies. You know, Disturbia as a young man, Peanut Butter Falcon is how I feel most days as a middle-aged man, that like Shia in that movie. And then between the 2 Christian Bale characters in 310 to Yuma and Out of the Furnace, that's sort of how I identify. And so in some sense, those are my favorite movies. The Lord of the Rings are always way up there. And there's a couple others. Strangely enough, I really like Sense and Sensibility, the 95 version. And no, I am not gay.
Okay, no, he's not. Okay, for single, super chat question, for single Catholic men in late 30s and 40s who are eligible for return, any good recommendation sources in finding a spouse? How would you approach long distance dating, if you would at all?
Long distance dating is a good option because you expand times, 100x, 500x your scan parameters. You just have to, hopefully as a 38, 42, whatever you are, year old guy, have the wherewithal to do a lot of fly-ins for the weekend. Fly her in, fly you in. I mean, like almost every weekend, because there's no substitute. We say this as subsidiarian advocates here on the channel. There's no substitute for Dasein, being there. You just have to be there in person. So get to know each other on the phone the first couple of weeks, talk every night, multiple hours a night. Developing intimacy is just the irreplaceable thing. But once you're like there on the phone, you have to know you have an in-person attraction. And for men and women, this is a different phenomenon. Women get weirded out just by maybe the way a guy walks. If it's not masculine enough, they're not as obsessed with, he doesn't have to be gorgeous, because men aren't really gorgeous the way women are pretty. But you do need to see how she presents. She needs to see how you present, and you need to spend as much time as you can.
If you enter the Catholic Church when you are baptized, how can a Protestant get married outside the church and not commit mortal sin / Catholic attending committing mortal sin?
The slash throws it off. There's natural marriage and sacramental marriage. So if 2 baptized Protestants get married, that marriage is binding. This is usually done in the context of whether or not that marriage could be annulled later. Now, I mean, the bigger question is sacramentally, how do Protestants get into heaven without the sacrament of confession? Don't know that one. This is why Protestants need to become Catholic. It's also another big reason why it's like we look at Orthodox just much closer. They have valid confession. So that's the big thing that Protestants lack. I mean, besides the Eucharist, soteriologically, they need confession. Their marriage is valid, though, if they're both baptized and they both knew what Christian marriage entails, even if they're married outside the church. I don't know if they have the culpable mens rea to be sinning if they didn't know they needed to be married inside the church. But the point is, they can't get that annulled later. It's binding if they're both Christian when they got married. Their big problem is they lack confession. How do you get back into a state of sanctifying grace after one mortal sin? You know, the baptism takes care of original sin, wipes that out. But how do you get back into a state of sanctifying grace without confession?
Okay. This guy says, ex-girlfriend who broke up with me a month ago has OCD and scrupulosity. She's devout, attends SSPX, but seems to be very emotionally immature. But we had the same goals and were attracted. What should I do?
Girls that break up with guys are usually, I mean, unless the guy's a real creep.
High maintenance.
High maintenance creeps. It's not normal. I know I'm not saying a girl that breaks up with a guy because he's actually a creep or something. That's probably just a smart girl that thought you were cool at first and learned you weren't. But girls that get scrupulous, men tend to be scrupulous, good men. Generally speaking, this is not something women do not get scrupulous about. Is this guy good enough? If he's decent, man, women tend toward extreme loyalty here. So I would say let it go. Generally, I mean, look, it's like a 30-second question, 30-second answer. I'm not saying I'm 100% certain, but women who break off one date or a month of dating or a year of dating because they say, you know, Jesus told me you weren't a good boyfriend or some equivalent, high maintenance, trouble.
Yep. And she'll challenge you on everything else, too.
Yeah.
That high maintenance dumper.
Look, there are lots of Christian feminists. There are lots of Catholic feminists. There are lots of SSPX feminists. You know, that's what this channel says, that we definitely said first. And Father Ripperger said the other day, you know, 80% of trad marriages are feminist. And I said, Father, I think it's more like 95. He said, you're right. I was being conservative.
A follow-up super chat question, and also thank you for this is their 10th super chat question that they've done on the channel, but they say, follow-up on the organs question, what if we only sell the deeds to organs? Is that okay because there's no mutilation? Just wondering. Thanks for the great answers, especially about Latin.
Would the deeds be regarding
like property, I guess?
After death? I guess that would... I mean, look, I gotta go through the analysis, but I guess it would be fine if the deed is a kind of remainder man deed, as it's called in property law, where someone's entitled to that organ after death. That might change the moral analysis. I'd have to think about it.
First super chat question from Frankie. What are your thoughts on females wearing jeans?
I'm not trying to be a wiseacre. I don't have a lot of thoughts on females wearing jeans. The pants, I prefer women in skirts I prefer my wife. I don't really think about it in terms of other people. And again, I'm not naturally strict by temperament, contrary to the nonsense Trent Horn and his wife were saying about me after I creamed him in that debate 5 years ago. I'm probably naturally much less strict temperament than Trent.
Right.
So, I prefer the aesthetic of certain dresses and certain skirts on women. I love Steph in like a pencil skirt. But does she ever wear jeans? The answer is yes. I don't think it's immoral. Is this inconsistent because pants really were originally for guys? It feels like a minor inconsistency, but I can't get to a place where I think it's morally wrong for women to wear jeans.
But if you said, I, as the head of the household, don't want you in jeans, I would not wear jeans.
That's absolutely true.
Okay, so...
That's absolutely true. That's not me having my arm pride. When I say don't do this, because Steph appreciates all the other liberties I afford, not like I'm some kind of libertine. I just don't go around making rules for no reason. She absolutely is like, okay.
First super chat question from Andrew. Should Father Ripperger engage with Peter Diamond? Diamond's very convincing and someone should refute him. Some have tried and they all fail, and Father R and yourself are the only ones who have the IQ background.
Yeah, sometimes I feel like I should do it. Sometimes I feel like, maybe Father Chad should do it. I the problem is with Diamond is that he is very sharp, and my background is in like metaphysics when it comes right down to the text stuff. I mean, you guys have all these pillars the channel stands for, rules for retrogrades. We spent all this time on these pillars of like feminism and subsidiarity because they fell out of fashion. And those are the two most valuable things we represent that other Catholics aren't sticking up for, is feminism, anti-feminism, and subsidiarity. But yeah, my most valuable academic background is metaphysics, which is why a lot of Orthodox don't want to debate me on metaphysics, because we have minor theological differences there that they expand on. Diamond is, if he were saying that there was something wrong with the church's metaphysics, I would do it. Ecclesiologically, I'd just have to study all those councils. That's the thing, and it wouldn't be hard. It would just be go through the councils. So if Father Chad, I don't know if Father Chad's good enough on the councils right now to do it like now. I could do it, though I'd have to take a month and study. I would just have to go get all of the sort of takeaway, not just knowing, okay, Council of Nicaea, number 1, saying Jesus is more God than man, or man than God. Council number 2 is Constantinople, saying Jesus had a human body but a divine mind. Council 3 is whatever, Ephesus, saying, refuting a sort of new version of Jesus is more God than man. Council, Theotokos or whatever. Council number 4 is Chalcedon, again restating in a different way Jesus has two natures, but they're divisible, or maybe he said, like not just the big principles, which is how I tend to know church history because I taught it for long, but like all the minute one-liners that Diamond will throw at people, because he's a smart guy. He'll throw one-liners and he just sits around and spurgs out on one-liners from the councils all day. And those aren't known as the big, those one-liners he throws out that are troublesome to like Vatican II Catholics is this dicta or is this binding? In law, there are judicial opinions that are dicta. That's just kind of throwaway opinion of the judge. What's binding is the big black letter law. And so a lot of pretty much all the Catholics that have gone up against him didn't know if that one little line were a real find that's binding black letter law that just no one talks about in the Vatican II sect. I'm part of that. Or is that just dicta? So, that's the point. You have to look at the weird lines that seem to compel in the direction of sedevacantism and be like, is this dicta or is it binding? And there are a lot of those.
Next question. Is there any significance for the common Catholic man who is not a theologian, a philosopher, or educator to engage in social media with posts or comments, or should the common man refrain to simply liking and subscribing? No,
interact. If you have questions like this, you're engaging in social media right now. Even that question is an exercise in an affirmative answer. So yes, absolutely. Social media aren't sacrosanct by any means. So Twitter is for shit posting. This is a better use of our time than anything I've done in Twitter in the last month. Speaking of which, there's some trolling questions, I think.
Are there?
Someone asked me a question, is trolling wrong? Because I said, hey, Elijah was kind of trolling the 400 Baal worshippers before he killed them. He made fun of how impotent their fake gods were. That's trolling. And they said, well, isn't that good trolling, whereas there's bad trolling where you're just trying to do it pridefully? Well, of course. I'm just saying that it's not necessarily a culpable actus reus. You might be doing a conditional good with a culpable mens rea. So trolling is sort of what you bring into it. If you're just trying to embarrass someone, yeah, that can be sinful. But if you're trying to embarrass a heretic out of a bad view, then that's very Catholic.
I've read Case for Patriarchy and Occult Feminism. That's by Rachel Wilson.
She's a great author.
Which anti-feminist book should I read next?
Definitely. I don't know if this is a man or a woman, but especially if it's a woman, read Steph's book, Ask Your Husband. It's written for women, but men are permitted to read it, and men have especially enjoyed that one. And it's a great coupling with the Case for Patriarchy, and so is Rachel Wilson's book, Occult Feminism. They all go together as a nice, we should talk to Rachel about like Christmas package.
Right. Yeah, we should just get our books like as a bundle and sign them and then ship them all together. We should talk to her about that, actually.
Let me reread this copy real fast. I just want you guys to know, you know and love this channel because we're mid-sized. We tackle anything, we'll say anything that is researched and we believe, no matter where it might get us kicked off. It did get us kicked off of Patreon 2 years ago. And we have devoted viewers on a mid-sized channel, but we did hemorrhage people, when supporters, when we got kicked off of Patreon. We never got them back. Please go to Locals and consider being one of, we're trying to get at least 25 new $100 a month supporters on Locals. Starting today, really. Because we might literally need a new computer. We were doing it before we even knew that. But I mean, look, when people are out there fighting on the front line, we get these nice messages all the time. You provide a service no one else does. We farmed out ideas to much bigger channels at The Blaze, at Daily Wire, even Tucker Carlson. Lots of people are taking the case for patriarchy and running with it. But, you know, the big channels choose to promulgate on their own. That's how it's most effective. We've made calls no one else has. We've taken stands no one else has. We do need support on Locals. It's not as good as Patreon, but if you become one of these new $100 a month supporters, do the first thing, email me and say, my name is so-and-so. I just became a $100 a month supporter. Here's how I'd like to interact with you. Pitch me something, and we're just doing it ultra personalized. You'll also get a special number that only $100 supporters get, so you can call into the show
and text you
and text me.
Okay, so this question, local subscriber says, what source-driven argument do you recommend for wives not working outside of the home without children? They read the sources document, our Catholicism versus Feminism document, which has all the sources from the church, which is on our website, timothyjgordon.com. And they want to know just more specifically, what sources do you have against what women who are married but they don't have kids from working?
Well, they're all in just the sources, but I guess I've taken slings and arrows for just reading the Roman Catechism. The Roman Catechism, which says that women should love to remain at home, never go abroad unless absolute necessity requires it. That's why people lie and say that Steph has to ask to like go to the mailbox. But just because I read the Catholic teaching, there's only been one catechetical teaching ever. We only have 2 universal catechisms. There's only one of them that address the duties of wives. The duty is to stay home unless absolute necessity requires it. That is not a duty of a mother. That's the duty of a wife. Now, as you can tell, you become a wife on your wedding day. You become a mother on the date of your birth date of your first child. All the other teachings that we pull from in just the sources tend to deal with the duties of wives, not the duty of mothers. Now, Vatican II and even Paul VI, Vatican II, Gaudium et Spes specifically, Paul VI and John Paul II all have quotes that say mothers shouldn't work outside the home. But all the other 20th century popes repeat teachings from the Bible, like Sirach, a woman should not work. She brings shame upon her household. And repeat the teachings by St. Paul and the Roman Catechism. All those first part of the 20th century popes, I'm talking Pius X, Pius XI, Pius XII, Benedict XV, and there's one more I always forget, I think, all say it's about mothers need to be home. And some of them double up. One of the popes, is it Pius XI, says we see a mother who betakes herself to a factory to augment her husband's income. I have it almost memorized. Whereas the home might have been small and insufficient before. Now we find it extra, what's the word, Steph, for her lack of care for it. So it implies to both husbands
like
and kids.
Or something.
Yeah, something like that.
Old or something.
So, and the husband finds himself devoid of a wife. This is an extension of the Pius XI quote, and the children of their mother, both of which are moral wrongs. So all the popes, besides those last most most feminist popes of the 20th century, JP2 and Paul VI, both of whom say, wives and mothers shouldn't work outside the home. You have earlier 20th century popes who are not that ancient saying, even if you're just a wife, you shouldn't.
Super chat
Just
from
really clear.
KW. Why doesn't the church enforce traditional guidances like veiling for women during Mass? That would increase women's reception to patriarchal elements. We saw a chick in yoga pants at Mass, LOL.
Oh, we went to a Novus Ordo last night. We'd been going TLM more frequently the last month because it's 2 hours away. That's why it hasn't been every week. And we saw almost nothing but, it was the college Mass here in town, and we saw almost nothing but yoga pants. This question is tantamount to the first one I answered today. What is the deal with Vatican II? The documents do seem fine, technically, but the spirit of the council, which was existent before and during the council, is not fine. It was evil. They did destroy altars, ripped altars out of churches, encouraged people to come to Mass and handle the Eucharist with their bare hands, and to not dress up and to not veil, because that's a patriarchy thing, and to sing ugly songs, and to get rid of the Gregorian reforms, and to have an ugly new missal. So, fruit of the tree. How do you love Vatican II just because the documents, which come very close to heresy in some places, can, I think, definitively be said not to fall into heresy? How do you love it when it did all of these disciplinary things? So it's that same answer. They really encouraged people to come as you are to Mass instead of come, the way you'd like to most reverently worship Jesus.
I'm getting married soon. My marriage prep lasted only 2 hours. Are there restrictions of things between spouses in the bedroom? Might seem likely a dumb question, but the church doesn't teach us much. By the way, there is a show Tim did with Will Noland and I believe Nick Stumphauser on that topic. They went over it for like 2 hours. That's on our channel. But Tim, go ahead.
Yeah, there are restrictions. The general rule of thumb, and we've dealt with this before, this is another thing where people will lie about what myself or Will or even my brother have advised. There are definite restrictions even for married people. Generally speaking, the church has not overstipulated, but the general rule of thumb is the three fonts, marital, unitive, procreative. And this has implications for moral theology. There is disagreement among the Thomistic manualists, many of whom are more permissive, and some of the older moral philosophers like St. Alphonsus and St. Thomas. I will say this, almost every single moral philosopher of the church, if you take the big 10 of the last 400 years, and even throw Thomas in there, has a different level of strictness for sexual liaisons between the spouses. But I would say the majority position, especially over the last 100 years, I don't mean post-Vatican II, I mean the early 20th century Thomists, manualists, tend toward more permissivity. The general rule of thumb is that as applied, the sod form, of relations is not allowed as applied, because it's basically impossible to do without damage. So the big question is the lyceity of foreplay, and that's where you get into a lot of the manualists of 1910, 1920, Ford, O'Neill, Jonet, Prumer. They weigh in, and usually they'll say some minimal amount of foreplay is okay, or some of them are a little more permissive. The church hasn't definitively said, but it's pretty clear, the traditional meaning of sod is off limits, whether you call it foreplay or not. This is one to look into, and it's just sort of a Google search, or you can look at that show we did. But yes, there are rules even between spouses. The general thing is, it's got to be marital, unitive, and procreative, which automatically means you can't do certain stuff. But foreplay generally is disallowed by the early moral theologians, and it's generally allowed by the later moral theologians, who I think are actually more truly Thomistic in their analysis. They allow a sliding spectrum of it.
Can we get a distributism stream with the distributist Dave Green? I'd like to know more on just economics, like, is it a form of capitalism? And that's Love from New York.
Thanks. I don't know of Dave Green, but I will say, I mean, yeah, I could do another debate. The problem with, when that was trending 5 or 6 years ago, the problem is you just get low IQ people on there. Look, I'll always defend an out of fashion idea. I'm not really in favor of what you'd call capitalism so much as a sort of liberty economy. A liberty economy means if you don't want to get a jab, you don't have to get it. A command economy, which distributists do advocate for, would say, yes, if the person in charge of the command economy says everyone needs to get the jab, everyone has to get the jab. In a command economy, they can say something like, every home needs to own at least 5 Wilson basketballs, arbitrarily. A non-command economy can't say that. And these aren't aspects of life that are correlative with subsidiarity. It's unjust to be ordered to buy 5 basketball. Well, I might be one of the only people reading or hearing this right now, or speaking it, that loves basketball. I know a lot of Catholics aren't into basketball. Why would you need to be forced to buy 5 Wilson basketballs? Well, in a command economy, which is the genus of distributism, the point is that it violates subsidiarity by the government can tell you to buy or not buy something that is morally neutral. And in a free economy, the government can't. They can criminalize not getting the jab. They can criminalize not owning 5 basketballs. They can criminalize what they want. So the question is always, do you remember what happened in 2020? That's the best key for distributists. Now, somehow the distributists will claim the mantle of subsidiarity. What they're doing is a very dishonest thing. What they're doing is misrepresenting what subsidiarity is. Subsidiarity, which I'm all for, it's the second biggest pillar of this channel, is governing locally. For government to be a natural community, it must be done locally. Laws must be elected locally. Pius XI says this is an element of the natural law. It's a mortal sin to violate subsidiarity. Distributists hate subsidiarity. They want a command economy where everything can be commanded from, one guy at the center, whether he's a dictator or a Catholic benign monarch. And they'll define subsidiarity not as governing locally, because they hate that, but as buying locally. So they're always talking about buying from a green grocer rather than Walmart. Well, that's fine and good. Do that if you want. But that's buying locally, not governing locally. That's my big problem with the distributists. Also, a little known fact, both Belloc and Chesterton were in the Fabian Society. Both Belloc and Chesterton liked and publicly wrote about the goodness of French Revolution. Belloc and Chesterton both liked a 5-point plan from the French Revolution whereby a man is not allowed to give his land to his sons or his forebears, or as a forebear, he's not allowed to pass on by herited land. So I like a lot of Chesterton quotes too, but he was in the Fabian Society. So was his brother, and so was Hilaire Belloc. I don't trust distributism.
Okay, is the Catholic Church the new Israel? Could you talk about supersessionism and replacement theology? Thanks.
Yes, I'm going to go fast on this one. The Catholic Church is the new Israel. And yes, I believe replacement theology is very clearly the Catholic theology. And I don't want to get into the CCC. The new catechism, the 90s catechism, sounds like it's not replacement theology. And some of this comes from a near heresy from Nostra Aetate, that sounds like, no, the Catholic Church doesn't replace Israel. The Old Testament Israelites still have a valid covenant with God. They don't need Jesus. if someone says that, then they're heretics. It's that simple.
Just no question, just love from Zoo Bear, who you called 200 Bear one time.
200 Bear, we love you, man.
Thank
we love
you very much. Okay, all right, that's it for the super chats. You want to just go to some regular chat questions, just like
yeah, sure.
Quick fire round?
Sure.
Somebody asked about lingerie, if that's okay. Sexy lingerie between a married couple.
Like, yes, of course. Yeah. Oh, wow. It's like a laser. What was that? Was that someone charging up? Yeah, like, here, let's do that again.
That was our son's, like, play laser gun. That was a well-timed sound effect.
Wifely lingerie? Wait, now I'm not getting the right sound.
You had to do it, like, 3 times, I think.
Wifely lingerie, yes, please. Yeah, there's no... I've never read anything. I don't even think... The strictest, Alphonsus Liguori would say that lingerie is bad. I don't even know where
Somebody
you could.
said I missed the super chat. Let me look.
Yeah, that just seems made up. And sometimes you get these maybe shy wives that are like just throwing stuff at you because they I mean, come on, marriage, God willing, lasts a long time. You got to keep it fresh. That's not even like lingerie is like the basics. That's not even particularly naughty. We're not even getting into the hairy questions about, what acts are allowed. I get that that's, it's hard to be 100% sure there because there's such a wide disparity among the very Orthodox Catholic theologians. There's wide differences on what acts are allowed. That's not true with lingerie. Yeah. That's lingerie is very good.
Andrew, Tim did address the Ripperger question. He said yes, and he would just have to do a lot of research to do that himself as well. But that happened a little earlier. Just because
the follow-up is I'm an idea guy, so I tend to, and I do. People just in Catholic circles will start saying, I do have good recall. I have sharp recall. So the way I do it is by memorizing ideas rather than exact wordings. And so I pretty much know most of all of the councils, what they stand for. And that's very useful. That's been very useful to me in running this show for 6 years. And it's been very useful as obviously a church history teacher. But when you're dealing with someone like, who does have a high Spurgy IQ, like Peter Diamond, he's purposely picking outlier feeling quotations from those councils. And, some of the hairy ones might be dicta. Some of the hairy ones might be binding. He claims they're binding. And so I would just have to study that well. I do know the councils, but I know the kind of black letter law, the big ideas of each one. And that's very helpful to do. It's not, unless you're debating Peter Diamond or maybe my friend Jay Dyer on the first 7 councils, it doesn't, you don't really need to know that little dicta stuff. But Peter Diamond and at other times Jay Dyer will say things that generally most Novus Ordo Catholics think is dicta. No, that's binding. And then it turns really problematic and you look like an idiot on camera. So I just have to go through I'd have to take a month and go through it, and then I could easily do the job, I think. I don't really want to do that though, but maybe someone needs to.
Would you ever enter into some of the online spaces that Andrew Wilson has got into, the Whatever podcast, etc.? He seems to be converting many to Orthodoxy because there's no Catholic there to help.
Oops. I like spinning pencils, and I just... the problem... Okay, so I was going to do with my friend Sovereign Bra, Chase, and Mike Pentile, and another Protestant guy, Mike Foster, I think. I was trying to get him to do the 4th position, Will Noland. We were going to debate Fresh and Fit and like Rollo and maybe a 4th red pill guy. And they wanted to do it on Fresh and Fit, but they backed out because they wanted at least one Daily Wire guy. And I said, well, the only Daily Wire guy that's a patriarchy guy, and Andrew too. Andrew's technically a patriarchy guy, not a tradcon, not a red pill. I said, well, Michael Knowles would do the job, but I don't know if they wanted him to partner with us. I forget how it fell through, but it fell through. But my stipulation was, and again, I'm kind of I'm more lenient on some of this stuff, but I said I cannot go where the floozies are, and I don't know how Andrew navigates this, but where the chicks with their boobies hanging out, and they're kind of festooning the room. I said, look, I'm only in Fresh and Fit if there are no chicks involved. It's not only the occasion of sin, but it's scandalizing.
Yeah.
To me, it wouldn't be necessarily the occasion of sin. It definitely scandalizes everyone, because you can't say, look at this piece of prawn. It's so bad, isn't it? You're violating the rule right there. So it's basically pornographic. So whether you're
bringing your followers to watch you on a show where there just be whores everywhere.
Yeah, look at this. Don't look at it. You can't do that. So they initially, Fresh and Fit, Myron Gaines, whatever his name is, said, yeah, if we bring you on, we cannot bring the floozies on. But I told Chase, Sovereign Brawl, that's my main stipulation. I'll debate anyone on basically anything, and not necessarily any time. I'll, schedule something for a month, like I said with Peter Diamond, but pretty much anyone on any topic, unless there's some sin involved, and I couldn't do that. So it's a good idea. And maybe Andrew's bringing them to Orthodoxy first, and we bring them over to the Catholicism afterwards. I don't know, but it's better in Orthodoxy than where they are otherwise. Just laying pipe and bringing men to the red pill, which is really sleazy. Not as sleazy as feminism, but really sleazy.
Ortho Bro here in chat says hi. He says, what are your thoughts on Orthodox Church?
I said this earlier. I see why people think it's cool, and I don't even mean it's not altogether cool. You guys are much closer kissing cousins. I've been known to question whether Protestantism is even Christianity, because they deny Jesus in the Eucharist. You guys have valid sacraments, real bishops, a lot of manliness. I have friends in the movement, but it's just, the Pope thing is all that divides us, in my view, and it's a really, really clear question. But I do get why the aesthetic is cool. Your guys' liturgies are beautiful. You have real bishops. You have real sacraments. I don't have any antipathy at all. And I do like the online, Orthodox American space. You just have more bros. Whereas the online Catholic space is so girly. So I admire that. And, that's kind of why, I don't know, I tend to get along with Orthodox guys, but just the papal stuff is so clear. Anyway,
also,
God bless.
The whole contraception and remarriage.
Oh yeah, and then divorce and contraception. Everything is so bad about Francis, and lots of Ortho bros watch the show. They're like, Tim's so honest about Pope Francis. Well, he's bad because he brought in communion for divorced and remarried, and he's trying to bring in contraception, and he's trying to bring in women deacons. You guys, in various of your autocephalous churches, have had those for years. Did you know? This is a true story. My brother in Christ. Nothing but love. But did you know that before the 1930 Anglican Lambeth Conference, there wasn't one Christian in the world, Catholic, Protestant, Orthodox, who allowed or was allowed artificial contraception? And the population control people had brought it at a meeting in 1900, the 1910, the 1920. They finally got some Protestants and some Orthodox at the Lambeth Conference in 1930. You guys changed the teaching after 1930 years. Protestantism's like 500 years old. You guys, like us, go all the way back. We're almost the same religion. You guys go all the way back to Jesus. But for the first time in 1,930 years, you guys changed the teaching on contraception. An absolute no-no. It's up to the internal forum. So whatever's bad about Francis is coming specifically from Cardinal Walter Casper, who's literally reading Orthodox theology on the internal forum. So
this is a quick question.
Shame.
Do you think there are any exceptions to going to a non-Catholic wedding of a fallen away Catholic? Not allowed.
No. None. It's not important anyway. People are like, are there any exceptions to, can a man flap his arms and fly? Well, obviously not. And it's not that hard to tell people no. People have to get better at disappointing their families, as Steph always says. By that, I mean your boomer parents, your boomer uncle, your boomer aunt, your whatever, your friend. Just tell them no. And don't look so hard. Your calories are better spent looking for something other than, oh, is there ever a time when there's a circular square? No, there's not. There really isn't. And I'm not just trying to be saucy here. There's just not.
Thoughts on the monarchy?
I'll just go Thomas. There are 3 forms of licit good government, and Thomas gets this from Aristotle, okay? This is, people always pegged me as an anti-monarchist. It's nonsense. There are 3 forms of good licit government for Aristotle and Thomas, my 2 boys. Very clearly. Monarchy is best when it works. Aristocracy is second best when it works. Polity, which is basically a republican form of government, is third best when it works. Those are the 3 licit forms. Each of them breaks down. Monarchy breaks down and becomes tyranny. It's the worst when it doesn't work. And Aristotle and Thomas say it doesn't work most often. It most frequently fails, monarchy of the 3 good forms, even though it's best when it works. And so most frequently, monarchy, even though it's best when it works, becomes the worst, most deadly form of government, and it happens more often than the other 2. The middle, the second best form, aristocracy, breaks down second most frequently, but it's second worst when it does break down. It breaks down to oligarchy, and it's second most fatal, and it happens second most frequently. Polity, or republicanism, breaks down less frequently than the other 2 and is less deadly, and breaks down into democracy. So you see how that is? Republicanism, or the mixed regime, is the third best of the 3 good forms, but it's the most bet hedging because it breaks down less frequently than monarchy and aristocracy. And when it does break down into its corrupted form, democracy, it's not as deadly as the corrupted forms of monarchy or aristocracy. That's direct from Aristotle and Thomas to your ears. That's my view on monarchy. It's best when it works. How do you ever make sure it works well? I mean, look what you had when King Charles became whatever, like a year and a half ago. You had all these LARPs. He is the equivalent of their pope. You had all these LARPs saying, I like monarchy. I like monarchy when it works. It doesn't work in England. It's been a tyranny for over, hundreds of years. And he's LARPing as a pope. You're standing up for a false pope over the divorce question. So that doesn't make me an anti-monarchist. It just makes me a monarchist in the rare cases when Thomas says it works. And it's best when it does.
How to combat the widespread common sense notion that is installed in the church like a cancer that being a good Catholic Christian man is being an effeminate man.
I mean, go to timothyjgordon.com, take our marriage coaching. If you're in marriage and it's bad, take our marriage class, read Steph's book, Ask Your Husband, read my book, The Case for Patriarchy. You're not going to get it from anywhere else in the Catholic Church. I mean, Andrew Wilson does a pretty darn good Orthodox job, but they're also, like you said, Andrew and Rachel, who are our friends, will bring people, hey, you want to be masculine? Do it the Orthodox way, and they're going to bring people there. This is why our channel is unique and important. There aren't other, there's Will Noland, who gives good advice to men on patriarchy. He's one of them. There's Mike Pentile. But aside from Mike and Will, there aren't other Catholic channels that are saying this stuff. So, yeah, just read at the very least, the bare minimum, read the Just the Sources document at the end of our new book, Leave and Cleave. That has all of these sources aligned. Yes, the church has been overrun by false teachers saying basically to be a feminist, to not submit to husbands, that husbands shouldn't ask wives to submit to them, to do all these false things. So that's why this channel matters. And that's why we do need your support on locals, because we got kicked off of Patreon for saying the full truth on matters of intersexuality, literally. So people want us to keep going, man, keep going. I get all these things. We do need your support. So become a new $100 or more locals supporter today, please, from now through the end of the year.
My husband has drifted far from the faith, and my faith is stronger than before. How am I to be obedient to him if he's not leading me properly?
Always pray for him, like St. Monica did for her husband. Steph is always telling women this. You have to obey him anytime he's not directly ordering you against Catholic teaching. So you just have to keep obeying him, even if his prudential judgments are informed by less than holy assumptions. Unless he's directly telling you to violate some teaching of the church, you have to obey him. That's very clear. But yeah, if he says don't go to church, you can disobey him. If he says contracept, you can disobey him. If he says let's try Buddhism, you can disobey him. Nothing aside from direct orders, clear direct orders to violate church teaching. You can't say, well, he wants me to clean the house twice a week, which is sort of a husband's choice. I only want to do it once a week, and he's not Catholic anymore, so I'm not gonna listen, because his reasoning is informed by non-Catholic stuff. It doesn't work that way.
Thoughts on attending Protestant funerals?
Oh, funerals. I mean, it depends. No, that one. Hold on. Now I've done this whole thing without notes. Protestant funerals, are they burying the body? And it's not a sacrament. It would just be a sacramental. So I think it's okay if they're burying the body, but someone correct me if there's some specific teaching that's wrong. It's not a sacrament. I mean, last rites happens before they die. So I think it's fine to attend a Protestant funeral. It hasn't come up that often for me, but it should. I'm 80% sure it's fine. Again, I do this whole show without notes. I do most of my shows without notes. So it's not a sacrament, it's a sacramental. So that's the bright line rule. I might have missed some little thing, but I don't think so.
Should J.D. Vance be allowed communion after publicly supporting abortion?
Now, when did he publicly support abortion? Can we get some follow-up?
I think people are, I'm guessing it was probably in some cases. I'm not sure about that, but I would guess that that's...
Well, I don't like the in some cases language, but now abortion is an issue that has been changed by my state, Mississippi, well, by the petitioner from my state, Dobbs versus Jackson Women's Health. Abortion has changed. It was Roe versus Wade was overturned in what was that, 22 or 21 by Dobbs versus Jackson Women's Health. And so now it's back to a states' rights issue. So I have heard J.D. Vance say the pathetic lame line about except in cases of rape and other exceptions. I mean, no, it doesn't matter. Rape is horrible, but as you know, two wrongs don't make a right. So he should not be saying that. He should be punished for saying anything to the effect of exceptions for rape. That should be punishable. I don't know if he should be excommunicated. You'd have to check canon law. But now where a lot of Catholics have gone is they want like a globalist law basically against abortion everywhere. And I'm like, wait. It was given back to the states. So if you live in a blue state, are you, because you participate in government in your state because of subsidiarity more than in the Fed, are you kind of accountable for abortions that happen in your locality? Yes, sort of. That's the idea with subsidiarity. This is one of the reasons you should get out of your blue state and get to a red state. Go to realestateforlife.org. Really, get out of your blue state, get to a red state today. Go to realestateforlife.org. You're not accountable for an abortion morally that takes place in China. Okay? We pray for those souls. We pray that they overturn it. Same thing. I'm not accountable for an abortion that takes place in Massachusetts. I am in a much more real way if abortions are happening in my state, my locality, because of this thing called Dasein being there, subsidiarity. So to whatever extent J.D. Vance he's vice presidential candidate, so I know he said a couple things and I forget exactly what they are. He's just said abortion is a subsidiarity issue. You might be inferring properly that he doesn't really care about abortion and he thinks exceptions for rape are cool. I'm not with him there, but it is a subsidiarity issue because all issues are subsidiarity issues. Pius XI put this in writing in Quadragesimo Anno in 1931, and he said that it's a natural law issue. So it's a mortal sin, basically, to breach against subsidiarity, which does mean that to whatever extent someone assumes that abortion's a subsidiarity issue, they are correct. But I'd have to double check what he said. He's definitely not correct when he said there should be an exception for rape. That's just wrong.
Somebody says, never give up the mullet brother. Honey Badger don't care. Somebody's asking you, has Matt Fradd reached out to you recently for a show?
No.
No.
I thought I'd get more Fradd or Marshall questions. That's what I thought I would be getting. You know, what's the inside track? No, I haven't. Matt Fradd said hi when Mike was out there, because me and doing Pints with Aquinas a couple months ago, because me and Mike text frequently, and I was like, how's it going? And then Matt made some joke. He was like, say something like Matt's mad at you or something. But yeah, we just haven't talked a lot over the last 3 years. The feminism issue kind of got in the way of the friendship. It was smally, but I'm always willing to overcome that stuff. So if he reaches out, I'm 100% amenable to being friends. Same thing with Taylor. You know, I don't let petty things get in the way. Other people tend to, but I wish either of these guys would reach out, because I was friends with both, and I want to like everyone.
Somebody's asking, if your 10-year-old daughter was raped and became pregnant, would abortion be acceptable in this case? Obviously not. No. You're not allowed to murder an innocent person because something bad happened to you. So
retardos just say, okay, 8-year-old daughter. What if it was your daughter in the wheelchair? Tim, don't you have a daughter in a wheelchair? No. Like, you can't flap your wings to your arms to fly. There's no exceptions there. Okay? You can't do it. It doesn't matter if you make it my 10-year-old daughter or my 16-year-old daughter in a wheelchair or my daughter. You just, no. You just...
You're not allowed to do something wrong. Like, you're not allowed to commit a mortal
so that
sin.
Good may come from it.
Yeah, because something bad happened to you.
That's called consequentialism, and it's denied to us Catholics. Sorry, go ahead.
If somebody stole my car, I'm not allowed to go and just beat up my neighbor across the street.
Right. Somebody steals your car. I mean, you really like the car. That's the equivalent of what they do. It's like your 8-year-old daughter, not just your like 15-year-old daughter. It's like your 8-year-old. Someone steals your car. Then can you go kill your neighbor? It's like, well, that's a third person. You're not. I mean, it'd be one thing if in abortion you like aborted the person who raped you. I don't know if principle of double effect would kick in there, because it still wouldn't be proportional, but you'd have more of a case. But an abortion, recall, is killing a third party because of the sin of the second party. It's ridiculous. No, there's no exceptions. Okay. What I said about subsidiarity has nothing to do with exceptions. Subsidiarity is just the degree to which virtual representation entangles us in moral culpability. I'm more accountable for an abortion taking place 10 feet away from me, even if I don't sanction it, than I am an abortion taking place in Massachusetts or China.
Any contact with Taylor Marshall at all?
There it was. No, and look.
Zubair.
What?
That was Zubair.
Oh, that was 200 Bear. No, and look, I think the coolest thing would be when Francis steps down or whatever, would be one TNT show. I think that would be really cool and meaningful for a lot of people, because that pontificate was so heavily covered by us, and it would be a cool thing. But yeah, he hasn't reached out. I've reached out a couple times, and it wasn't really effective. But this stuff happens with people who are on social media, and everyone wants to save face, and you argue about something silly or stupid or make a claim, and it's too easy to get locked in positions for all of us, and life is too short. So yeah, I'd love to talk to Taylor or Matt.
Has anybody reached out to you about a debate between you and Trent? A second hashing?
Trentanius?
Trentanius.
No, again, I've said to Trent and Laura, hey, we occasionally come through Dallas. Steph has family there. When we come through, we should get dinner. No, and I don't think he would want to debate a second time because of the first time, but same thing with Trent. And Trent I have talked to behind the scenes some over the last couple of years. So he's not doing the total like shadow ban thing. And he had me on a show to debate that Protestant guy. I forget the guy's name. I mean, so I would go to dinner with Trent and Laura with Steph. Anytime we're in Dallas, would love to. 100%. I would love to debate him on feminism again. I don't suspect he would, but yeah, ask him. I mean, because I tend to take any debate. I'm not the first stop. If you want me to debate someone, you go get them to sign the dotted line, and I won't be the one to hold up a debate. So even if it's a bit of work for me, and I'm not going to lie, most debates aren't a lot of work for me. I don't have to prep long, but if I was debating Jay Dyer on metaphysics, I said, give me a month to 2 months, and my metaphysics is really good. I would just have it top form of any influencer online. If I was debating Peter Diamond on ecclesiology, I would have to work a bit because he's sharp. But any other topic, pretty much any day. Yeah.
They're asking what do you think about the female deacons? Well, the Mayan Rite just came out, and women are exactly what is happening is what Tim said would happen. They wouldn't make it a sacramental deacon because that's too bold. They're going to do incrementalism, where they're going to have women more participating in the mass, which has just got released this week for the Mayan Rite. So
yeah, they're having women being altar incensors, which is a deacon light role, which is precisely what I said they would do. Just give them all the functions of deacons, and they're having them do readings.
Do you read New Polity?
No, I do not. I've interacted with those guys, soft debated some of those guys. I mean, they have some good ideas. They have some bad ideas, I think, but they seem to be good guys. I don't read New Polity. You get into the fashionable sort of post-liberalism that's really, really problematic right now, and has been for 3 or 4 years, 5 years, with New Polity guys. Okay, so remember, we're looking for those. We're looking to number 25 new locals supporters. $100 a month or more each, please. Or more is great, but we're really... We speak out of our mouth pretty clearly. Look, we got kicked off of Patreon, had a really nice followership on Patreon. Never fully replaced it. We don't piss and moan about it most of the time, but whoever's out there that has access to that's a loyal, devoted follower of the channel that has access to some monthly means, I think it makes for an ugly show to be doing these call outs all the time, but as a kind of end of the year fundraising thing, we do need some of the larger local supporters. Email me after you go and do this, and we will tailor my interactions to you to specific things you want, rather than even just like making a Patreon light tier where it's like, you get 2 free books and this and that. Just go support if you can, because we need it, because we're out there on the front lines on these issues, and we're making a real difference more than any other Catholic channel, even though we're smaller than some channels. And then when you send me the email, just say what you want, say what your level of interaction is, and we're really amenable to that. Thanks for tuning in. This is fun. This is really fun. Did it pretty much without notes. The only notes I had were, what to say with the cheesy salesman pitch, because I hate it so much. That's my least favorite aspect, is having to make asks, but we kind of need